SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
When addiction takes control, getting help can change everything. Parkwood Behavioral Health System offers compassionate, evidence-based addiction treatment for adults right here in Mississippi. Take the first step today. Visit parkwoodbhs.com. Healing starts here. With limited exceptions, physicians are not employees or agents of this facility.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, and I'm on Founder Square at the world-famous Neshoba County Fair, Rhino Safe and Sound, back in the SuperTalk Mississippi headquarters. We'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this Hump Day. It rained on me the whole way up here from central Mississippi to the Neshoba County Fair. It is a muddy mess, but that doesn't seem to have dampened the spirits, shall we say, of fair-goers, Rhino. It's a pretty good crowd in front of me. Positioned here as we always are, facing the pavilion at Founder Square. We've been taking in the political speeches this morning, and we've got a packed lineup for you. First, the Neshoba County Fair, Mississippi's Giant House Party, is back and bigger than ever. And SuperTalk Mississippi is, of course, live from Founder Square. Our coverage of the Neshoba County Fair is brought to you by Build Mississippi. If you've got a student wondering what's next after high school, Build Mississippi can help show them the options. It's also brought to you by Southern Farm and Ag Equipment. They work as hard as the people running their equipment. No doubt about it. So we've got a jam-packed lineup, as we always do, in store for you today at 10:35. It's Ty Pinkins. He is an independent candidate for the United States Senate. I got some questions for him because he just spoke. I took in his speech and some items of interest, some topics of interest that we'll cover. And then we've got Mississippi's State Treasurer, David McRae. He will kick off hour 2 of Middays from Founder Square, followed by Mississippi's Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hosemann, and then Shawaski Young. He's been on several times. He is a candidate for Secretary of State of the great state of Mississippi, also serves as the secretary of the Neshoba County Republican Executive Committee. At 12:05 for 2 segments, it's Mississippi's Attorney General Lynn Fitch. And then we'll wrap things up today with Mike Hurst. He's the general counsel for the Republican National Committee. And, of course, Mr. Hurst is the chair of the Mississippi Republican Party. And something we'll probably talk to Mike about today, Rhino, is we are still awaiting the Supreme Court to hand down some decisions on some extremely high-profile cases. That could happen literally any day as the court is wrapping up its term. Birthright citizenship on the docket. Deportation and tariffs. This involves cases evaluating, considering the legal bounds of executive powers to impose tariffs without explicit congressional authority, and then limits on temporary deportation protections. But one in particular that we're watching concerning the state of Mississippi involves a lawsuit that was filed by the Republican National Committee naming Mississippi Secretary of State Michael Watson as the defendant. And this involves whether or not states can consider, count, accept mail-in ballots received in the days following the official election day. In the state of Mississippi, that's 5 days. If a mail-in ballot is postmarked with the date of election day in the postmark officially, if it's received in the circuit clerk's office by 5 days, within 5 days after the election, that ballot will be counted. After that is no good. However, there are some, certainly the RNC believes, nope, you got to have it in hand by election day, otherwise we cut it off, and that's the way it should be, and we should not consider ballots that come in after that. So I want to be clear that even though Secretary of State Michael Watson is named as a defendant in this lawsuit, I do not believe this is his position. He's not arguing in favor of this policy. Rather, it is his responsibility as the Secretary of State to defend Mississippi's law. So the Secretary of State is not a lawmaker, and that's the case with the other heads of these statewide agencies, if you will, the Secretary of State, the State Treasurer, the State Auditor, the Insurance Commissioner. These are all statewide elected offices, but they are bound by law to simply discharge the duties assigned to them and execute the policies that have been promulgated in code, in law, by the legislature. So if we want to change this law and disallow the consideration of ballots that are received after Election Day, we should change the law. That's the way it ought to work. So we're going to see what the Supreme Court says about that. And then another one is the transgender sports and medical bans. This also affects the state of Mississippi because we do have bans concerning gender treatment for minors in Mississippi. That is prohibited. That is unlawful. And then biological males in Mississippi are not allowed to participate in female sports. So we'll see how the court rules. If the court says, Mississippi, you and other states who have these laws in place, as I just described, says those are not lawful, well then, heck, we would be required here in the state of Mississippi to allow sex change treatments on minors because our law prohibits that, bans it, and we would also be required to allow, as Rhino likes to say,
dudes in dresses
to play sports against females. This is crazy. So, man, all eyes on that at the Supreme Court. And then there's also a Second Amendment law, or I should say case. And this is a challenge addressing an Hawaiian law regarding where individuals can openly carry firearms. And there's some other provisions over gun restrictions for certain classes of people. So the Supreme Court is going to weigh in on that as well. So, man, a full docket before the court. I feel better about getting what I'm going to say is the preferred ruling, certainly from my perspective, and I think most clear-thinking Mississippians and Americans as well with this court. I feel like it's less ideological. Had this been the court under the Biden administration, or certainly under the president's first term, President Trump's first term, when the court leaned more heavily to the left until he was able to get some appointments placed, I don't know how they'd rule. And that's part of the problem, right? Our courts should be totally objective and should consider law. But unfortunately, as many know, these justices have become lawmakers in robes, and they are kind of advancing an agenda that really has nothing to do with law, but is more immersed in ideology. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be something. On the C Spire text line, good morning, gentlemen. I just came through Union at the Neshoba County line, headed to Philadelphia, and the bottom dropped out as soon as I left Union city limits. I hope you have boots, Gerard. I couldn't find any. I literally did go shopping for some yesterday. I think they've all been sold out, but I couldn't find any. So far, I've been able to navigate around the mud here at Founders Square. It's the low-lying areas and where you don't have a lot of gravel or any kind of grass coverage. Where we are here with our tent positioned right next to the public restrooms, we're in pretty good shape. Although, Rhino, we have Houston and I have had to poke the top of the tent above us a couple of times because the water was accumulating, and we were concerned it was going to crash down here on the SuperTalk Mississippi set. And that would have ruined our day, I think, is what we would say. Wouldn't have been fun. But that's where we are at Founders Square for Mississippi's giant house party, the Neshoba County Fair. We are going to take a break right here. Once again, at 10:35, it's Ty Pinkins. He's a candidate for the United States Senate. We're in the Element Wealth studio here at Founders Square. Coming right back.
Mississippi.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
That's the great Brad Delp on lead vocals, Boston. Appreciate that, Rhino. One of the greatest rock and roll voices ever, no doubt about it. We're back with you at the Neshoba County Fair. We're on Founders Square on the C Spire text line. We've got a text here from Ben from Madison. Y'all may have covered it yesterday, but I see where DPS scrapped the AI surveillance program idea. Happy to see that reconsidered. It's unclear. I hear you, Ben, and that does appear to be the case, but there's so many conflicting reports. But I got good news. We've got the commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tyndall, on Middays live from Founders Square here at the Neshoba County Fair tomorrow. I believe the time is 12:20. You definitely don't want to miss that discussion because we do have some questions for the commissioner. One thing's for sure, there was a fairly comprehensive process involved in this procurement, having been involved in hundreds, if not thousands, of procurements through the Mississippi Department of Information Technology Services. That's who oversees technology policy and procurement for the state of Mississippi. It's very involved. When you put together these requests for proposals, RFPs, for a particular solution, that involves an enormous amount of effort on the part of the agency and ITS. And then you publish those. You're soliciting, you're inviting proposals, vendors to respond to that RFP. That takes an enormous amount of time on the part of vendors. They then submit those, of course, to the Department of ITS. Analysts score the various proposals, the various responses across a scoring matrix where they just establish criteria and they assign weights to each of those criteria. And then once that's done, the Department of ITS then recommends a vendor to be contracted with for the RFP, for the solution that was solicited. And then the next step is that's presented to the ITS board. Now, the ITS board, these are, I believe, appointed by the governor. And these would be people that have some sort of background, some sort of understanding of information technology and certainly state procurement. and then the board votes, yes or no, on the recommendation. Typically, it's a rubber stamp. The analyst comes before the board, presents the solution that was solicited, and discusses the various proposals received, and then makes a recommendation, shows the scoring sheets, and then, of course, justifies and provides the rationale for that recommendation. In this particular case, they determined, hey, there's only one vendor that has these cameras, these AI-powered traffic cameras, AccuSensus, out of Australia. And so in an extremely rare move, the Department of ITS agreed with the agency and essentially allowed this procurement to be a so-called sole source procurement purchase, meaning only one vendor has this solution we're looking for. So there's no doubt that the Department of Public Safety was looking for a solution that would be designed to deploy these mobile AI-powered cameras throughout the state. Mobile in that they are on telescopic poles. They're elevated above the roadways on telescopic poles that are attached at the base to some equipment and some power, and it's literally fitted on a trailer that can be transported around just via standard trailer hitch hookup. So there's no doubt that there was a procurement for this particular solution. It's just a matter of what the Department of Public Safety had in mind, right? So that's the question. And right now it looks like that they're backing off on this. The commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, you heard the clip on our air. He recorded a video indicating, yeah, that's not what we're going to do, and we're reconsidering, and I'm not going to sign this contract. I'm still a little confused about it. So seems like what DPS is saying and what's being reported, and I have to give some credit here to the Magnolia Tribune. They were the first out of the gate with this story, and then, of course, our great folks at SuperTalk Mississippi have also, Caleb Sailors wrote and published an article that I believe is at SuperTalk FM that kind of recaps this series, this sequence of events and how we got here today. But there's no doubt the ITS board approved this purchase. And a Department of Public Safety rep that was present, this is typical where the agency will speak on behalf of the solution that, again, they're seeking to procure before the board, said, yeah, we're going to use these cameras to notify an officer downstream when they detected some sort of traffic violation. So, and then no distinction, by the way, was made between commercial trucking and regular vehicles as part of that. I don't know. It's confusing. That's why we're going to get the Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tindall on the program tomorrow to discuss. I would also suggest, as I did yesterday, Ben, not sure if you heard us yesterday, we got to be consistent, in my opinion. You guys know we have municipalities throughout the state that have cameras installed all over the dang place. Now, I don't know exactly what they're using them for, honestly, but they're definitely capturing images, video of motorists that are traveling through the city. And I think the question is, what sort of privacy should we expect in our vehicle? Is that a different standard than if you're just walking on the street? What if you're in a convertible and you don't have a top on? These are all kind of complex questions, and I'm not trying to be contradictory or confrontational. I want our lawmakers to be consistent. We have banned the use of these cameras in cities, municipalities. That happened in a law passed several years ago that we talked about. We banned them for use of detecting traffic violations and issuing tickets. But they're still searching. I mean, they're still capturing images of people traveling with systems operated and owned by government that are storing these images on somewhere upstream on government-controlled IT systems. It may be outsourced with cloud providers. Doesn't really matter. The fact is government that controls this data, this video information. So should we ban that? The same with the Mississippi Department of Transportation, MDOT. They've got cameras all over the place. Now, none of these are using them to issue tickets, but they are They are capturing images, video images of Mississippi or other motorists that are traveling about the state wherever these cameras are positioned, and they're being stored on government computers. What are they doing with them? I think that's a fair question. So should we maybe extend? The legislature's already talking about banning this altogether. Okay, that's fine, but should they extend that ban to, look, cities, counties, you can't use cameras whatsoever for any purpose. You can't capture video in the congested intersections, on streets. I know in the city of Jackson they have them all over the place. They're also installed all over the University of Mississippi Medical Center. That's state property as well. Installed there is both a crime deterrent and to use to capture crimes that are committed that perhaps law enforcement would have some additional information to identify the person committing the crime, like breaking into cars, which was a huge problem in the parking lots at UMC until these cameras were installed. Should we ban that as well? Because they're capturing everybody. They're not just capturing images of people that are committing crimes and breaking in cars. Something that we ought to consider. And it doesn't matter if they're AI-powered cameras or not. Forget the aspect of that. That just means that they have a little bit more discerning capability, like not only just capture an image, but determine whether or not, for example, you've got your seatbelt on. On the C Spire text line, I don't agree with the AI cameras, but I also know my picture or video was taken probably 59 times on my short trip here. Exactly. That's the point I'm making. And I think there's a practical aspect of this. There's a utility aspect of this, and then there's a legal aspect of this. And we went through that yesterday. I actually read the Fourth Amendment. And, it's a question of whether or not the Fourth Amendment, which says, hey, you can't go searching somebody without a warrant, which I think is absolutely spot on policy law, and it means Rhino, you and I talked about that. It was all kind of stems from England before our founders came over here, where the monarchy just helped themselves, right? If they want to just bust up in your residence and start searching, even though they didn't have anything in mind, probably just looking for dissenters, right, Rhino? Is what they're looking for, any evidence of that, so they could take action against you. It's something that I think we ought to consider, though. That is a fantastic song there by Steve Perry. Really showcases his voice. That's in his solo career. Foolish Heart. Coming right back at the Neshoba County Fair with Ty Pinkins, candidate for United States Senate.
From the Seabrook.
Is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Neshoba County Fair. We're at Founder Square. Attorney General Lynn Fitch currently in the pavilion speaking to the crowd that's taking in the speech. And she'll be over on the midday set here in a few minutes. But we're waiting for a candidate for U.S. Senate, Ty Pinkins. He's an independent. He got caught up in an interview, and he'll be over here in just a moment. And we'll talk to him about his candidacy for the United States Senate. Speaking of the United States Senate, one of the things that we've shared on the show that I think it bears repeating, and that is the coming insolvency of the Social Security program. Why is that related to the United States Senate? Because that's going to happen during the term of any person elected to the upper chamber, the United States Senate, this fall. 6-year term. Social Security is scheduled to become insolvent in 6 years. So what is happening now that it really bothers me is that we're seeing Republicans and Democrats get together on how to address the coming situation with Social Security. Meaning, what I mean by that is that some 23% of benefits would not be payable. There'd be a cut unless action is taken. More money's got to come in to the program to make it work. And then there's the short-term issue of what happens in 32 years, 2032, 6 years. And then there's the long-term issue is, okay, well, what do we do with respect to Social Security to ensure its long-term sustainability? And it looks like that Republicans and Democrats are getting together on a proposal, and we'll talk about that later on. Right now, though, we're getting set to welcome Ty Pinkins. He is a candidate for, let's see here, we'll get this thing like that. There we go. Yeah. All right, so we're all set. We've got Ty Pinkins. He is an independent candidate for the United States Senate. He's right here with us on Middays, the SuperTalk Mississippi set just off Founder Square. So close to the pavilion. So you just got through speaking,
Yep.
Ty. Well, I caught some of it, but what's the overall message?
Well, the overall message that I want to send to Mississippians is that we can do better than what we've been offered over the past several decades in the form of the red team and the blue team.
Okay.
If you can keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result or try something different, which is why I'm running as an independent. And one of the points that I shared earlier with someone is that since 1977, on 6 different occasions, the two political parties have had an opportunity to control every part of our legislative process, from the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, and the presidency. So if both parties have had that much control over 49 years on 6 different occasions, why are we still dealing with stuff like broken immigration system, the high cost of gas, groceries, health care, our children's education, housing? We're still dealing with these same issues because when the Republican Party puts forth a policy, Democrats go sit on their hands in their corner. When Democrats put forth a policy, Republicans do the same thing in their corner. Right now, there are 6 independent veterans running for United States Senate across this country, including myself. Okay. Our goal is to prevent either party from getting a majority in the United States Senate. Then both parties have to come and talk to those independents in the middle in order to make a majority. But that's not free. Mississippi wants something in return. We want to make sure that we have single-issue bills to ban our elected officials from buying, selling, and trading stock, overturning Citizens United, lowering the cost of health care, lowering the cost of food, making sure that the issues that are important to Mississippi are put on the table, as opposed to these two parties that continue to fight and do nothing.
So let's talk first. You mentioned immigration. What would your policy look like with respect to immigration?
Well, I think immigration is extremely important. Making sure that we have the right number of immigration officials to process immigration the right way. Making sure that we have the right number of immigration judges to process immigration the right way, but also making sure that people who are not supposed to come into our country are not in our country. Any country that has a border sees that as a benefit. That's extremely important.
What would you do about the price of gas?
The price of gas?
Yeah, you just said that. I think that
Right.
was an issue, right? So.
Well, with the price of gas, making sure, first of all, that we don't get into wars that we should not get into, whether that be a Democratic president or Republican president. Here's a fun fact. The only president since the War of 1812 to serve 4 years without having put or served with our veterans or our sons and daughters in conflict is Jimmy Carter. That is it. Nobody else. Every other president has served with some type of conflict going on. And the other irony in all of that is the two parties that have been in charge during all of that time are the same two parties that got us into the mess that we're in right now.
So are you for more restriction on exploration of fossil fuels or less restriction? Where do you stand on that?
Well, with regard to fossil fuels, making sure that we're also respecting our environment, making sure we're taking care of our environment and not impeding on those natural resources that we find valuable in our country, but also not crimping or not crimping the fossil fuel industries or the gas industry's ability to actually produce oil and gas.
Okay. Healthcare, you mentioned that as well. What would be your policy prescriptions to lower the price of healthcare?
Well, I think when you look at the top 31 countries around the world, our peer countries, 30 of them have some form of universal health care, some form. The only one that does not have some form of universal health care is the United States of America. And the question that people also, the statement that people push back on is, well, how are we going to pay for it? My pushback on that is that we already paying for it. When you have people who are paying $500, $800, $1,000 a month in healthcare premiums, you're already paying for it. The issue is we're paying for it to the same healthcare millionaires and billionaires that buy our elected officials and candidates before they even go to Washington, D.C. So
would you then support abolition of the private health insurance industry and replace that with a government-provided Medicare for all? Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think I support the Medicare for All Act in Congress right now.
Okay.
I think that's
so that would, in fact, abolish the private health insurance industry.
No,
effectively, it would.
I don't think we should abolish private health insurance, offering those policies to people. If somebody wants to get private health insurance, they should be able to. But I also think that as the richest country on the planet, we, as one out of 31 countries that don't offer that service to, whether you're a black person or a white person in Mississippi, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat that needs access to quality, affordable health care, I think we need to fix that issue.
And would such a program reimburse providers of health care equivalent to the way Medicare? Do you see it that way, reimburses, which you know is a loser for them?
Yeah, I haven't thought about it to that degree.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Social Security. You're probably aware that the Social Security program is going to become insolvent in 2032. Won't be able to meet its benefit obligations. What would you propose to resolve that problem?
I propose sending independents to Washington, D.C. to hold both parties accountable that haven't solved the problem over the last 7
What's the policy, though? What policy would you implement?
Well, there's no particular policy right now, but the issue is that with a lot of the issues that Americans are facing, the solutions are already there. We just have people in Washington who can't implement them. So we need independents, in my case, independent veterans in Washington, D.C. that can force both parties to implement the solutions that they talk about every single year. You hear it every election cycle. They come out and they tell Mississippians, you want health care, you want lower gas and groceries and drugs, you want lower housing. Well, Mississippians already know that, and that's the game that they play with voters. They come out and use these issues to gaslight voters and make them dislike each other, as opposed to going to Washington, D.C. and fixing these issues.
Do you think the filibuster should be killed?
I think the filibuster is a tool that both parties hide behind when it's convenient for them. And I think the way that we deal with that, again, is sending independents to Washington. Should it be killed? No, it should not be killed.
Okay. So then the threshold in the U.S. Senate, should you be fortunate to be elected to represent Mississippi in the Senate, means you still, on many of those issues, you're dealing with a 60-vote situation in the Senate.
You're dealing with a 60-vote situation in the Senate, and I think one of the issues with that 60-vote majority is you take a look at the Supreme Court right now.
Yeah.
Where during the Obama administration, that threshold was brought down.
Right.
And then the subsequent Republican administration came in, and they also took advantage of it. But look at where we are now. I think there should be a 60-vote threshold for Supreme Court justices and federal judges.
Okay, gotcha. Appreciate you coming on.
But I also think that we need to implement term limits for Supreme Court justices and our elected officials.
Interesting. Okay. Ty Pinkins, candidate for the United States Senate as an independent.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you coming on, Ty.
All right.
We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Neshoba County Fair. We're at Founders Square. Looks like the sun is starting to break through the clouds, but it's still a muddy mess out here. But that should not keep you away. Come on out and see us and enjoy the fair. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann currently speaking to attendees seated under the pavilion at Founders Square, followed Attorney General Lynn Fitch. And the good news is that both of those individuals will join Middays today. We're going to talk to David McRae, Mississippi's state treasurer, in the next segment after the top of the hour break. And then he'll be followed by the Lieutenant Governor, Shawaski Young, candidate for Secretary of State, as a Republican, joins us at 11:35, and then we'll kick off hour 3 of the program with Attorney General Lynn Fitch. Wrap it up with GOP Chairman Mike Hurst. So just talking about this Social Security problem, you can see, folks, when we had Ty Pinkins on, nobody wants to talk about the policies. They all acknowledge that, yeah, it's going broke, and we just got to get together and fix it. Okay, well, fix it how? And sometimes I get criticized. Well, at least one person I know likes to criticize me when I just boil it down to very simple terms. Very simply, this is what we got to do to Social Security and the public employees retirement system, which is in the same boat with a $26 billion unfunded liability. It, too, is barreling towards a time when it will not be able to fully pay benefits. It's real simple. You got to have more money coming in, less money going out, or a combination of the two. Those are the three options. Now, what do you want to do to achieve one of those three options? Well, before we got Mr. Pinkins on, I was sharing this rather strange bedfellows situation in Washington with Republican Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio joining up with Liz Warren, Pocahontas herself, on a policy prescription for Social Security. And what do they want to do? They want to scrap the cap. What we mean by that is they're calling for an elimination of the current threshold at which earnings over are not subject to Social Security taxes. That currently is $184,500. You make more than that, everything up to that, you pay the full boat Social Security FICA taxes on. You and your employer do. But once you get above that, you don't pay it anymore, and your employer doesn't pay it anymore. But what they're wanting to do is eliminate that threshold, which means that everybody who makes more money than $184,500 that's subject to Social Security taxes is going to pay it on all those earnings above it. Now, this then means that you pay into Social Security, you don't make $184,500, for example. You pay in, you expect to get your benefits out. That's what you signed up for. That's what you pay for. Absolutely. Totally fair. Except, given the way the program works, because you don't have an account up there with your money in it that is then used to pay your benefits. That's not how it works. It's just money comes in. That's why it's often referred to, by the way, as a Ponzi scheme. Doesn't have your name on it. It's not assigned to you. It's not attributed to you. It's not available to you to take out at any point you want. You just have to meet all the various criteria to draw benefits, and at that point, benefits start flowing. But whatever you paid in is what you paid in. And that may or may not be sufficient to cover the benefits out. That's exactly how the PERS program works. That is, in essence, a defined benefit program. So what we're saying here is all these people that make more than $184,500, they're going to continue to pay in so that you get your benefits if you make less than that. They're just paying into the general big bucket of money. And here's the truth. Already the high earners pay $4 in for every dollar they get out. It's a redistribution program the way that it is currently structured. So it's amazing to me that we have a Republican senator that is supporting raising taxes, and joining forces with a Democrat senator who never met a tax that she didn't like, that being, of course, Senator Liz Warren. It is estimated this would raise about $3 trillion over 10 years. You can do the math. That's $300 billion a year. And all that does, by the way, is it extends the solvency of the program for a while. It is not a permanent fix. It's just a way to kind of shore it up and kick the can down the road, essentially is what it is. It's going to be interesting to see if Republicans are going to support this legislation. You know, the Republicans that say, I will not raise your taxes, because if they support this legislation, they're raising the taxes on some people. That's just fact. And this is bad policy, in my particular opinion. Bad policy. And it's just amazing that we got two senators that are, you would think would be polar opposites here, that are joining forces to enact this legislation, pushing this legislation. That would put, by the way, the top marginal rate at 52%. 52%. Stepping aside for a break, Fox News, SuperTalk News at the Neshoba County Fair. Treasurer McRae is next.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We're at Founders Square at the Neshoba County Fair. That's where we have temporarily relocated the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
We are pleased to welcome now David McRae. He is the treasurer of the great state of Mississippi. Mr. Treasurer, thanks for coming on.
Oh, appreciate you, Gerard, for having me. Considering this weather and everything, glad to be here and not stuck somewhere.
Yeah, I see you got your boots on. You came prepared, man.
I got my hunting boots on, and I brought my truck with my winch on it, and I already was told by 3 people behind the speakers area that I may need to help them out later today. So that's fine. I'm here to help. Just remember the treasurer helped you.
Well, there's another wave of rain that we hope is going to kind of circulate around us, and it won't get us. And then hopefully it clears out, and then it gets back to the steamy, hot, sticky, humid Neshoba County Fair weather. Right?
I've been coming to the fair, of course, my whole first and second term. I came several times after law school and everything like that. I don't think it's ever rained on me. This is the first time, as I said up there, felt like I'd missed a true fair experience.
All right, so did you speak today?
I did. I just spoke about 10:20.
What's the message?
Well, the message is I am running a third term as treasurer. I'm excited to do it. I love my job. I love going to work every day. I love my staff. It's something I have just tremendously enjoyed my first 2 terms. We've done an amazing job at the Treasury. We've given back roughly $200 million to the people of Mississippi, which today I said that we did a study through Mississippi State, and that overturns roughly about 7 times in the state's economy. So that's happy. We're happy about that. Our investment returns are, we've reached over $1 billion in my 6 years in investment returns. It looks like we're going to hit the about 3.7, 3.9 marker this year. And with all of our conservative investments that we have to have, I think that's pretty good.
So when you made the decision to run in the 2019 cycle, right? Your first.
That's right.
Yeah, first term. Is it what you expected?
It's, coming from the private sector, as you know, you get to kind of make the decisions you want, and they're kind of done without much question, as long as, they're, I work for my family. Yeah, so, sure. Dad let me kind of run it myself, and with my brother, and, as long as my brother and I agreed, kind of like his grandparents agreed on things, kind of how the stores ran, it was fine. But, in general, we did. Now, in government, it is government. It's red tape, and you can't make that decision as quick as possible. But what we've done at the Treasury, we have done the old adage that Republicans want to do. We run it like a business. Yeah. I see the Treasury as the bank of the state, and I run it like a bank. And that's how you've seen us do what we've done. Unclaimed money has exceeded my expectations. I gave them a mission at the beginning, and they've done it. College savings, they've exceeded my expectations. Our funds, our legacy fund, our Horizon funds are fully funded. They weren't when I got there. They're now fully funded. And Forbes recognized us as the 6th best college savings program in the country. So, I mean, we're doing something right.
Yeah, and so would you agree that the fact that the Republicans under the dome there, having been fiscally responsible, does make the job a little bit easier, right?
Oh.
It'd be a lot harder if they were spending money they didn't have, for example.
Tremendously easier. And the state revenue's doing good, so we have money in the bank. We don't have to do bonds as much as they used to have to do.
Yeah.
So we're not having to borrow money,
Yeah.
though our credit rating is great.
Yeah.
Things are on the uptick. I mean, the governor keeps announcing a new project almost like every hour on the hour, it seems, at this point.
Yeah.
And that's helping people move into the state. And that's going to create, as you've talked about many times, a new type of job, a new type of training also at the technical schools, at the four-year university. Hopefully they'll keep kids here in Mississippi, and we'll grow our population, and Mississippi's a great place to live.
No doubt about it.
The funny thing is, when people come to Mississippi and visit, they're amazed.
They're blown away.
They love it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's so evident, and this is a little off topic, but you look at all these World Cup fans who are traveling around the country right now, going to the soccer games, and they are loving the South. You just see them left and right, from Dallas to Atlanta. They're traveling, they're driving, they're having the greatest time. But
no doubt about it.
But they're in all over the country. But all the videos I've been watching on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else, the South is where they're having the best time.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that goes to show you something.
Yeah, we just have better people and better culture. It's a lot more fun.
Much better food.
Better food for sure.
And it's so
That's a good
funny.
point.
But we're doing a great job at the Treasury. I'm excited. I'm proud of my team, and I'm proud of what we're going to do in my third term.
So we're paying off debt, which is a good thing. We're not having to go out and incur any new debt because we're living within our means. We're only spending money that we're taking. In fact, we're not spending all the money we're taking in.
That's it. And the revenue numbers are looking good.
Yeah.
I mean, unless something catastrophic happens in the next couple of days, because we end our fiscal year in a couple days. Always nervous, but unless something happens, our revenue should be up for the year.
It looks like it will exceed the sine die estimates from last year,
which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, people complain that why can't you get it more correct, but sometimes it's better to underpromise and overdeliver.
Well, certainly on the revenue side, it becomes a problem on the expense side, as you know. So
yes.
you want to be a little more conservative there,
of course,
for sure. But so that in all states aren't experiencing the same sort of positive fiscal performance as we are, right? You deal with some of these guys.
No, they're not. I mean, they're like, how do y'all have the money to do what y'all do, and how do y'all have this group? And I said, well, one, we're Republicans and we know what we're doing. That's it. And I'm talking this about Democrat states, but also Republicans who aren't as fiscally conservative as ours, from much bigger states than ours. There's some that have less credit ratings than we do. I mean, and they're just like, how do you do it? I'm like, well, one, we balance our budget, we know how to make money, and we just know what to do. I mean, and as simple as flippant as that is, it is the truth.
It's the truth. Yeah, Illinois is in serious trouble.
I
don't know what their bonds are rated now, maybe Z or something.
Well, they can go to that new museum that opened up there.
That's right.
And enjoy that.
Obama's library we're talking about, and he's stiffing all the contractors as well. So.
I read that the other day. I've been a bit busy and everything, and but I did read that, and they can have fun with that. And look, Illinois has got a ton of problems. Their pension systems in the toilet, and they just can't get out from themselves.
And you sit in accordance with our law, speaking of which, on our PERS board as well. So you're a voting member,
yes,
right?
I'm a
state treasurer's a
permanent member of the PERS board, for better or for worse.
We still got some work to do there.
A ton of work to do there. I mean, always got work. I don't think that's a place that will ever not have work to do. I came from a PERS meeting yesterday, and it looks like we're going to be at 17.4 returns this year, which is awesome.
Really?
Wow. And
that's consistent with market performance.
And that's great. I mean, we want to be that, and we're going to have about $40 billion in the bank.
Okay.
So that's awesome.
That's an increase.
From 36 to 40.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 or 4 billion.
And to me, a lot of people may be like, well, I could do better than that. But the problem is that the conservative investments you got to do. You got to have liquidity.
You got to be careful.
You got to be careful. You're playing with other people's money. But PERS does need some help. You and I could have a whole.
Yeah.
We could talk for an hour on this, but PERS needs help. Tier 4 needs a little help, and once we get it in the right direction, I think the credit agencies are going to love it even more, which means we have to borrow. Our credit rating will be better, which means we don't have to use as much taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that we're going to do something, but the legislature, they're hesitant because, as you know, Mr. Treasurer, most of the solutions, generally speaking, impose pain on somebody, one way or another.
Yeah, and it's just kind of one of those life things.
Yeah.
You can't. Right. But the good thing is, and what I'm very optimistic about is the legislature wants to talk about it now, and so we're having conversations about it. Whereas before I even became treasurer, they didn't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. With the conversation's happening.
So having a conversation, and right now the anthem's being played, so I don't want to be too loud.
Yeah, but we're good. We don't have the speaker on, so we're good. So.
But I'm glad the legislature is wanting to talk about it.
I agree.
Before I got here, I was always told you never talked about it. So the thing is,
it's not politically popular.
Look, these are problems that weren't created overnight. These were created over many years of Democrat control, and so we've only been in control for a little while, and now they want to talk about it, want to do it. So I think there's something to be done.
But you're right. We have enjoyed very handsome returns this year, which is good news. Of course, the market's been on a tear as well.
That's good.
So.
But as I always tell people, like, well, it's expected you should make money. I was like, yeah. If the market's in a good year, you should make money. If you're losing money in a good year, then we'd have to have some talk.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to point out that the investments are doing great.
Yeah.
The fund is getting funded more, which is great.
Yeah.
We're hitting the assumed rate, over the assumed rate return.
Way over.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's gravy on top.
Yeah. Of course, you got to make it when you can, because you don't know what's down the road where you experience some trying years. So
and
all part of it.
It's all part of it. So I think we're doing good, and I think the state is heading in a great direction, and Tate is going to really set it up nicely for the next governor.
I agree. We've been talking to Treasurer David McRae here at Founders Square at the Neshoba County Fair. We're stepping aside for a break right now. We're coming right back with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Thanks for coming on, Mr. Treasurer.
All right, Gerard. Appreciate it very much.
Yep. Coming right back, folks.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. The Element Well studio has been relocated to Founders Square here at the world-famous Mississippi's giant house party. It's the Neshoba County Fair. We're pleased to welcome now the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann. Thanks for coming on there, Governor.
Oh, yeah, man, it's good. You got a tent, man.
I know.
You're one of the few people that's out of the rain here.
I saw you navigating around the mud patches to get over here, but what are you going to do?
The crowd is just as great as they always are. This is an educated political crowd here.
No doubt.
And as you see, most of the people that are underneath the building are regular people that come to the fair every year and whatnot. Yeah. And then on the periphery, all standing around are the lobbyists. They want to hear what you're going to say so they can take something back and bill somebody for it. So you got to be on your game when you come up here. It's a pretty daunting thing, and it's a wonderful place. Such a history for Mississippi. It's just wonderful.
So I caught just a little bit of your speech, which was just a few moments ago at the pavilion. What was the message today?
Well, we went over what we've been doing, which is funding education the third time, teacher pay raise. We put civics in our schools. Gerard, every time I talk to these, I watch TV, and you see these guy, walking out in the crowd, and he says, who did we fight in World War II? And they go, France. And you go, what are we? So we put civics and financial literacy in schools this year. We need better attendance. We've got better schools. We've got worse attendance. So we need our.
I know that's something you focused on.
Our chronic absentee rate is just out of sight. It was 27% last year. That means 1 in every 4 kids is absent at least 10% of the time. You can't learn if your seat's not in the seat. So I've been pushing that. I met with Mr. Evans, our superintendent, just this last week, and he's assured me that we're going to do better this year, and there are a whole bunch of programs we're trying to put into effect. But basically, you got to make it where the kid wants to come to school. That's one of the biggest. We got good teachers, and we got great facilities now. We're funding everything, but they got to want to get up. And after COVID, Gerard, as you know, they just quit coming.
Yeah.
So I was excited about that. We paid the National Guard stuff for their health. Half of them are overseas somewhere every year, so they needed to have their health insurance when they came back. And we put another $150 million in roads. So, it's it's all good. All good.
Yeah.
But on crime, we got it where if you're under 18 and you use a gun and shoot somebody like they did down in Simpson County, that deputy sheriff tried to pull him over and got out of his car and they shot him. Well, those people need to be tried as an adult and need to go to prison if they're convicted. And for some reason, we've gotten a habit that think we put them back out on the street and they're going to be rehabilitated. They're not going to be rehabilitated. They need to be in the custody of the corrections department. We'll rehabilitate them in there. Street rehabilitation rates not working. So we've made it where it's a crime. And if you pull a trigger on one of my officers or even any individual person, it's a crime. We want to put them in prison.
And maybe we need to even consider harsher penalties when a law enforcement officer.
We got those already. Yeah. It's already in the law. So they're wonderful, but the reason you do that is they're more in harm's way than everybody else. And what they are to me, when you think about this, Gerard, is they are the face of security, of the law. Of how we operate and we deal with each other. That's the visual part of our whole legal system, and the first one to touch anybody is always a law enforcement officer. So I think it's particularly pertinent to pay attention to them because it's really a shot at me and you.
Yeah, and I believe, Governor, just their mere presence is a strong deterrent of crime. You look at what Capitol Police has done.
I was just going to say.
That's the evidence of it right there.
That was one of I kept coming downstairs in the Capitol and seeing all these guys sitting around. I said, well, you need to get in the street. And so we did. It took me about a year or 2 years to get that done. But now we got like 150 officers out, and the crime rate downtown has gone to zero for that very reason.
And when you travel around within the Capitol District and you see Capitol Police officers in their vehicles, you just feel a little safer.
Yeah, they're out in Fondren. They're down in South Jackson. They're out at Jackson State University. There's a pretty big swath they cover.
Yeah.
And you would hope, that the Jackson Police Department would then be able to focus on their part and have a better result. But we still have too many people getting shot, Gerard. I mean, why people, somebody's got to think that their life's not worth anything, because if they shoot somebody, they're probably going to get arrested and put in prison. So why would you do that? Whatever happened to getting in a fight, at the Dairy Queen or whatever we used to do.
I agree. And you just walk away with a little bloody nose or something.
Right. And everybody, after a while, you get pretty tired. The brothers used to raise me back in the old days down at St. Stanislaus in the summer. If we got to acting up and pushing around each other, they had a ring built, a boxing ring, and they would take us and put gloves on it, and we would fight 3 1-minute rounds. Well, at the end of that, we probably weren't so mad at each other. So I just tell you, there's a way to cure this.
Well, yeah, the nuns would put the yardstick on my behind as well.
Absolutely.
And they were pretty good with it, too.
Oh, yeah.
Batted 1,000.
Yeah.
Senator Horn, of course, speaking of Jackson, former Senator Horn, now Mayor Horn. Mm-hmm. He seems to be on the right track there. Are you working with him any?
We are. John and I, or the mayor and I, have visited several different times. We have some things that are kind of insoluble. We're in trial over the airport finally.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
However that works out, it would be good. And but on other issues about funds that they need for the downtown and those kinds of things, we gave a good bit of money for the park system this year.
Yeah.
The Flores Bluff, which is really an anchor for a lot of the state. There was a phenomenal facility over there with the Children's Museum and the Natural Museum and all that other. So we are cooperating with them. The capital city needs to be safe, and it needs to be a place where it's the only major, if you call it major city we got. And when kids graduate from school, we need for them to come back to Jackson and have a place where they can, get an apartment, start their lives, business lives, and we want to do that. We're tearing down the old Highway Patrol building.
Yep.
We moved everybody out to a new building, and so we're tearing
on Woodrow Wilson there,
yeah.
55. Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that that'll develop into something that will be where young people can come back and live.
I know you like to talk a lot about the positive financial condition of the state.
Yep.
And we were just talking to Treasurer David McRae. I know you're aware of the numbers. We're in the last month of the fiscal year. It looks like revenue is going to come in excess of estimates from last year, which is good news. And, of course, we're phasing out the income tax. We're in a 4% flat tax on all income over $10,000 this year. It will decrease by 1/4 points over the next 4. We got to keep the sales tax revenue coming in to kind of wash that out, though.
You do, and we're cutting $100 million a year in taxes. So we're a little over $100 million this year. When our tax comes in, it goes down 1/4 point every year, 375, 35, 325. So as we cut those, everybody needs to realize that's less income.
Yeah.
So if we don't pick up some from the sales, we need. That's why you hear me talking about downsizing state government. That's coming, y'all. I mean, we now have, since I got here, we're 1,500 less state employees, and we're not buying any vehicles. And so we need to get our state government in the right size. We did away with, Senate voted to do away with 17 boards and commissions last year, and the House killed it. But we'll be back, and they've got a committee, and hopefully we can work with them and do some reorganization that's meaningful.
How do those cuts, Governor, how do those translate into less spending? Because spending's actually up. We're cutting the boards, commissions, cutting some employees, but we're budgeted for more money to be spent.
Yeah, the spending part occurs when we decrease the size, but we've taken teachers from $45,000 to $57,000. So we're spending money. You're right, but I think it's the right spot now versus whatever. The other thing, I don't know you're big on this too, but the other thing that's problematic to me is the fact that every one of these boards or commissions can write regulations. So that means you got to spend some time, which means that you're not buying something or working or building somebody or earning a living. So there are some ancillary benefits to decreasing government by the fact you don't have to touch them too much.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think you know this. The average person says, well, you spent 7.2 last year, you spent 7.4 this year. That sounds to me like we're increasing government.
Well, our original budget was, I think, 20 or 30 million less than the year before, and the creep that goes on in the Capitol got about $100 million more. But we had a budget in December that actually decreased it, and I think this year you may see a sign of us doing that again.
I think that's for Medicaid showed up and said we got to have more money too. So.
Yes, they asked for $395 million, Gerard, and we ended up with about 185 or 90 million. I have met with them the last week, 2 weeks ago, to talk about what is your real number here, what do you got to have, and what is your expenses, and how much.
We got about 30 seconds.
So that Medicaid is just a beam of.
It's a national.
I know it's not just us, y'all.
Yeah. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman, thanks for coming on, Governor.
It's good to see you, George.
Yes, sir. Coming right back with Shawaski Young. He's a candidate for Mississippi Secretary of State.
From theseabrook.com.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Neshoba County Fair, Mississippi's a giant house party. We are here at Founders Square. We're pleased to welcome now Shawaski Young. He is a candidate for Mississippi's Secretary of State. Shawaski, thanks for coming on, man.
Gerard, thank you so very much for having me here today. It's this beautiful, muddy day at the Neshoba County Fair.
We're optimistic that the rain has moved out and the sun will be breaking through, and then I think tomorrow is on tap to be a better weather day for us as well. But you had the opportunity to speak in the pavilion today, right? Or are you up tomorrow?
No, I'm not speaking this year at all.
You're not speaking. That's right.
Not speaking this
that's
year at
because
all.
That's right.
They didn't
In accordance with the rules.
Right.
That's right. My apologies for that.
No worries.
So yeah, but you several months ago, right, announced that you are
Absolutely.
a candidate for Secretary of State.
Absolutely. You know, we have been traveling around the state, and it has been a great opportunity for us to talk about conservative values, talking about faith, freedom, and education for our state as it relates to economics. I think it's going quite well for us. We just came back from Biloxi. I was down there speaking at Mississippi Chief of Police Association. So a great shout out to them for giving me an opportunity to talk about my interest in making sure that we fully fund Department of Public Safety and look out for our law enforcement. Next day we were at the Harrison County Republican Club meeting where Commissioner Cheney also spoke there, and I was happy about the reception that I got.
Great club, isn't it?
Oh my goodness!
Grief,
in Gulfport. Oh, great
I've been
club.
fortunate to speak to those folks 3 times, I think, through the years.
Yes,
and
sir.
I always have a great turnout. It's a great venue, great view. Is it not up there?
Oh my goodness! I said, I've seen. It's one thing to see it online on Facebook when you see they've had these particular meetings. It's an entirely different thing when you're in the room and you're able to just look at all the beautiful water.
It's awesome,
and all the good folks down there. So I'll be going back doing a keynote down there pretty soon when it's scheduled.
Super, that's awesome. So tell us about how the campaign's going.
So right now with the campaign, we're building up momentum. I think folks are seeing that across the state. You know, we're traveling county by county. We're also starting a tour that's happening right now. We'll be up in Hernando on July 13th. We got a good fundraiser that's going on there. But aside from that, we're going to be in Union County at Craving Catfish on the 23rd. And we're going to Rankin County and Lee County and a lot more counties, especially spend a lot of time on the coast. And, we're talking about, making sure that folks understand, I'm going to be someone that's going to continue to represent strict voter ID. When it comes to mail-in ballots, it's, what it already has been for conservatives in our state. Restrictions on folks who are not seniors or military or college students. Yeah. And I think that is resonating well throughout the state and making sure that we continue to be able to bring good business to our state and making sure that it's easy to start a business and protect your business.
Yeah. So what are your plans? I mean, let's say you're blessed, you're fortunate, and you are elected to be Mississippi's Secretary of State. Of course, as you know, we just got through talking to the state treasurer about this. Mm-hmm. Much of what you do, of course, is based on law that's passed over in the Capitol, 100%. And your job is to execute and discharge your duties in accordance with that law. But you've got some latitude on policy, of course, and just the operations of the office. Anything in particular that's on your mind you're thinking about doing if should you be elected?
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to do is make sure that we actually streamline small minority veteran programs in starting a business. Okay. Right now, a lot of that particular information, of course, you go to Secretary of State office to get the LLC, start the organization. But when it comes to how we're able to bid on contracts and making sure that our veterans and our folks who are minorities and veterans get the information that they need to be able to get the points that they need to be able to be at the top of those contracts, it sits at the department. The developmental authority, MBA. And that was something I actually talked with Bill Quirk about. Why does it sit there, right? And he wants to be able to see it moved, and I want to be able to see it moved. So that's one thing. Yeah. The other thing is I want to be able to make sure that, when there are folks across the state that, want to be able to bring business in the state. Yeah. For example, there are a lot of folks down on the coast who want to see casino development expansion actually take place, right? So I've met with some folks down there about that. I know right now they have received their gaming license for it. There is some confusion, about whether or not how that's actually going to get started. So I'll be an advocate for casino development expansion on the coast. I'll be an advocate for capitalism all across the state.
And so let's clarify for the audience, the Secretary of State does have the responsibility of managing public lands.
Absolutely, in our tidelands.
Yeah.
Right? So a major part of tax revenue comes from our tidelands down on the coast. The city of Biloxi only gets about 22% of taxes that come from the casino development. The other 85% comes, to the state.
Okay.
That's
right.
Yeah.
That's the way it's distributed in accordance with the law when we authorize casino gaming.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I want to be able to see, us move forward with more casino expansion down there. I've actually had an opportunity to sit down with a lot of folks on the coast, including Mayor Fofo, who's actually
he's here. Yeah,
he's here. I just shook his hand. Yeah. Him and his chief administration. Yep, of Biloxi. His chief administration officer is with him as well too.
Okay.
So I met with them a while back. About 2 months ago, and I'm big for it. I know they want it. I want to see Biloxi grow, Gulfport grow, all Gulf Coast cities grow, just like we see in DeSoto County and other parts of the Golden Triangle.
Yeah. All right. So another major area of responsibility, of course, for the Secretary of State, as you know, perhaps the biggest is administering the state's elections.
100%, absolutely.
So talk about that. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that is a main tenet of our election priorities for our campaign. One, when it comes to election integrity, I support President Trump's approach for his vision and to election integrity. So I want to see paper ballots go throughout the entire state of Mississippi in a uniform fashion for all 82 counties, because we know in some particular counties folks have voting machines and they sometimes have problems, and there's also some concern about whether or not those voting machines can be hacked. So whether that's true or not, people do feel that way and have had some experiences. I want to be able to see paper ballots throughout the entire state. I want to make sure that people are using a real ID that the federal government has actually put forth. So I'm a big supporter of the Save America Act, that's being put forth.
I don't know if you've seen the latest on that, but the Congress passed a housing bill, a sweeping bill, sent it to the president's desk, and he said, I ain't signing it. We're going to talk about the Save Act. That just happened today, this morning.
Oh, really?
This morning. He pushed back, says, I'm not signing it until we get voter integrity bill to Save Act.
Well, I know it was the White House position that he wasn't wanting to move forward with any major legislation outside of what's happening in Iran until the Save Act was actually passed. So he's staying true to his word on that, and I can appreciate that. He just
acted on that promise.
Well, that's
absolutely.
Good.
This morning, literally.
We want to make sure that only U.S. citizens and citizens of Mississippi are voting in our elections.
Yeah, there you go. There's the headline.
Trump Council is silent. Yeah, there it is. Absolutely.
That just came across the wire at 10:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 our time. It broke when I was on the way up here.
That's great.
So he's focused on that. But on the other side of that, I don't know if you've seen this, a federal judge has ruled that states cannot access the SAVE database, which is key to our SHIELD Act, which is designed to ensure that only valid American citizens can vote in our elections. A federal judge just says, no, states can't access that.
Right. Well, we'll wait to see if it goes to, an appellate court or a Supreme Court. I disagree with that right off the top there.
I agree.
I think that it's important for us to know who is voting in our elections.
I agree.
Bottom line. And the idea that, folks don't, need an ID to go vote is just ridiculous to me. I think that's something that Democrats often use, to basically gin up votes. And it's not true, and I think it's insulting, and I've talked about that before.
Yeah.
So, I want to see real voter ID, strict voter ID in our state. I want to make sure that our circuit clerks in our state actually know that, they're going to continue to have someone that's going to support them, make sure that we have great training in the state to make sure our elections are ran properly and in the highest levels of transparency and integrity. Of course, that's what I used to do for the Secretary of State's office. I train election commissioners and circuit clerks how to actually get certified to run those elections. So I want to be able to see that happen in our state as well, too. And I'll continue to build great relationships with them all over the state.
Yeah, I understand. Well, good stuff. So, and then you've got responsibility for, as you talked about, the UCCs and the business filings and also campaign contribution management and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Look, one thing for sure that's going to happen if the good people of Mississippi can put their trust in me as the next Secretary of State is what you're going to get is somebody who's going to make sure we're going to actually continue to try to modernize the Secretary of State's office. And what that means is those folks who are running for office in our state are going to have a fully functional system where they can input their campaign finance forms, and we can make sure that we're tracking folks how we need to be tracked. We're going to not be allowing people to do it in pencil and all this stuff and pen. But I think that's how we're going to be able to modernize the Secretary of State office and make sure we have an actual process and a software that's going to be easy for folks to use and also easier for the citizens to be able to go in there and find out who's giving money to who and making sure they understand exactly what's going on in the election system.
Yeah. That makes total sense to me as well. So.
I think that's a good dollar well spent.
All right, so you're going to be traversing the state, spreading that message?
Absolutely. You know, we're talking about voter ID. We're talking about business expansion. We're talking about a safe Mississippi as a prosperous Mississippi, because that's why I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. I want to be able to make sure that they have everything that they need, because businesses don't want to invest, families don't want to live in communities that aren't safe, and that's key to our economic message here in the state. And we'll continue to talk about conservative values and my experience as an administrator, and I think that that's going to continue to resonate with people all over the state, and hoping to ask for everybody's prayers here and for your support. And you can definitely go to youngformississippi.com to get that information as well, and sign up and see if you can help us out.
Shawaski Young, candidate for Mississippi Secretary of State 2027. Appreciate you coming on, Shawaski.
Thanks so much. I appreciate being here as always.
We're stepping aside for a break. We're coming right back to the Neshoba County Fair. We're at Founders Square. Don't forget Attorney General Lynn Fitch at 12:05. Stay with us.
Up of Mississippi. Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from Founders Square at Mississippi's giant house party. That would be the Neshoba County Fair. We appreciate all our guests for joining us today. Most recently, it's Shawaski Young. He's a candidate for Mississippi's Secretary of State as a Republican. He is also a member of the Neshoba County Republican Executive Committee. So this is his stomping grounds right here. Speeches have completed for the day, and folks are just meandering around, navigating around the mud piles is what they are. So, pretty cool. Let's see, on the C Spire text line, not helping us with pay raises, especially on state law enforcement. Talking about the lieutenant governor earlier was on discussing the shrinkage of government, and specifically said 1,500 jobs eliminated. I think that requires a little context, though, because we didn't just terminate 1,500 people in state government. Rather, I believe what happened is that authorizations to hire employees in state government that are still outstanding but unfilled and have been for quite some time were essentially canceled. So don't get too excited about the idea that, well, we got 1,500 fewer employees in state government today than we did. That's not the case. And most of the employees, by the way, that are funded by state government are teachers. And we have a tremendous need for more teachers, a shortage of teachers, certainly right now. So, but yeah, state government employees, law enforcement in particular, their pay's been fairly stagnant for a while. And I know there's been certainly some outcries from those employees that, hey, look, we need to get a raise as well, not just the teachers. That, of course, does, generally speaking, increase the government spending. Something else is that we got to talk about is Executive Director Ray Higgins of the Public Employees Retirement System. He is moving on from that position, and on his way out, he basically wrote a letter and said, you know what, this program needs more money to sustain it financially, even though we have experienced some significantly higher returns on the investment portfolio this year than in the past, and higher than the target, mainly due to the major investments in AI-related stocks, which have been the big growth stocks, the AI, so-called AI trade for the last couple of years. And the Public Employees Retirement System has substantial positions in those companies. In fact, its largest holding is NVIDIA, the graphics processing unit chip maker that powers the servers that process artificial intelligence. So he said, though, we got to have more money. Now, all the legislature's done to this point of any significance is increase the employer contribution rate by some 2.5%. That happened a couple of years ago. That, of course, is a cost borne by taxpayers. And that will terminate at 19.9%, I think in 3 years, maybe 4 years. But what Mr. Higgins says is just really sharing what the actuaries have said, which is that's not enough. You got to get up to around 26%, another 7%. So what that means to you, the taxpayer, is 7% on top of all the pay in the public sector, a 7% multiple of that is the additional spending, additional contributions needed into PERS. That is a cost that's going to keep going up to keep it properly funded. That's what they're saying. At this point, the legislature has kind of kicked that can down the road. I don't believe you're going to see a lot of action come next year in a session that happens to land in an election year. So it's hard to get them to make the tough decisions when they know that, as they like to say around the Capitol, it could get your picture taken off the wall, a kind of a metaphor representing the difficulties one has in getting reelected when they vote to make tough decisions that aren't necessarily politically popular. So may be popular within the PERS membership, but it's not popular, generally speaking, for all those that are not members of PERS that, of course, are responsible for the employer, the taxpayer-funded portion of the contribution model. I would also say the same with respect to the Social Security system. That is something I'm just astonished at, that we have Republicans that are absolutely considering increasing the Social Security contribution rate, and every single candidate for Senate in 2026 should respond to the question, what are you going to do about Social Security? Because it's going to happen under your watch. They should be talking about it. And then don't forget, tomorrow we've got the governor on, get his take on the condition of the state of Mississippi. We've also got Commissioner Sean Tindall of the Department of Public Safety, and we certainly will visit with him about this controversy that has ignited quite the firestorm in Mississippi concerning the possible implementation, deployment of AI-powered cameras by the Department of Public Safety. Right now, it's break time, top of the hour. When we come back, it's Attorney General Lynn Fitch at the Neshoba County Fair.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. We are live, of course, at Mississippi's Giant House Party. It's the Neshoba County Fair. We're at Founders Square on this Hump Day. We're pleased to welcome now Mississippi's Attorney General Lynn Fitch. General, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. Great to see you. Great to be here.
I see you've got the proper footwear on for today.
Definitely need the mud boots for this America's House Party.
But we were just talking, though, it's cooler than it has been in the past. Generally speaking, that's what we're concerned about at the Neshoba County Fair, is just the heat, the humidity, and the lack of circulation air, but I feel a little breeze on our back right now, so it's not bad.
Great.
I know.
We've been here before when it's been sweltering, exactly. So it's kind of nice having the breeze.
Yeah. So you spoke earlier today right here at the pavilion on Founders Square on the stage. That is a mainstay at the Neshoba County Fair. What's the message today, General?
Well, we have a lot of great things going on in our state, and so it was a time to showcase all that we're doing and how we're leading across the country. So if you look at the things that we're doing, and we're leading in law and order and economic development and education, and those all come together. And so I think many times we are known as the best kept secret in the country. So it's time to stand up and be bold and just own all these great things that we're doing and how we are leading our country. You know, we've talked about certainly the Mississippi Miracle. Wow, what an amazing leadership position we're in across the country, and people are looking to Mississippi to go, how are you all doing this? What do we do that Mississippi is doing? We're leading by an example, and certainly education is one of those with the Mississippi Miracle. And then you just look at all the other areas, be it the law enforcement, certainly our economic development has proved. And so I think it's really time for us to look at where we're leading, where we're going, what we've been able to accomplish together. And in our state, we're really wonderful about unity and partnership, and that's how we are making all these great things happen.
Yeah, no doubt. It's good times here in the state of Mississippi, and I think just common sense policy, conservative policy, it has been driving that. Education you talked about. I mean, it's just common sense. We really shouldn't pass students that aren't ready to proceed and to advance, and keep them back, and let's remediate that and get them on the right track and then move them forward. And that we got away from that somehow. That just seems to be common sense to me.
Absolutely, and something that you and I have talked about for a number of years. The legislature this year passed financial education to be in our schools, and so now all of our students will have to have financial literacy before they graduate. One, that's an amazing resource for them to have. It's a life skill. It also prepares them to be the workforce, and we have to be always thinking about what's our future look like, what does our workforce look like, how are we preparing those young people to be us. So I'm excited about that now being a component for our schools as well.
And we've got, as you know, so many great assets and resources that also enhance the education with Accelerate Mississippi, for example, and our community colleges have great workforce development programs in place that were all crafted in collaboration with industry, so that the subject matter, those courses, the curricula in general prepare one for a professional life after their education.
Absolutely, and that is one of our best skills and resources that we have. Like you said, it's an amazing partnership with particularly our community colleges, but our universities, again, being very strategic and looking how do we govern, and again, how do we help these young people become that workforce, and being flexible and understanding, what are the new things that we need to pivot to prepare our workforce.
Yeah. Now, I heard you talk a little bit on the stage about some fraudsters that your agency has tracked down and are bringing them to justice. This has gotten a lot of attention since President Trump took office. As you know, it's exposed a lot of the misuse of taxpayer money throughout the country. Unfortunately, Mississippi's no exception to that. They're bad actors out there that are trying to get their hands on this money that doesn't belong to them.
And we see that happening across the country, as you said. But, for President Trump to be leading on this issue, not long ago I was in a meeting with Vice President Vance, and this was the task force bringing us all together. Certainly the attorneys general are kind of the tip of the spear because, again, we can work with all the partners within our states and across the country to go after these fraudsters. And it's not just millions, there are billions that are being stolen from the taxpayers across our country. But even in our state, we just participated and just put up some new numbers as well as part of the task force. But we've now, since I've been in office, recovered $101 million that was fraudulently taken from Mississippi taxpayers. And then just this week alone, we indicted 11 more people with another $12.3 million that was stolen from Mississippi taxpayers. So we're going to prosecute hard. We're going to continue to go after people that are committing the fraud, where there's corruption involved and there's waste that's happening.
Essentially, as Mississippi's chief law enforcement officer, as our attorney general, do you feel like that the penalties and the punishment is strong enough for committing these fraudulent crimes? Should we perhaps bolster those somewhat?
I think we definitely need to do an oversight and see where we are in each of our respective states, and then also from a federal level. There were a number of arrests that we saw our federal partners make as well, and I think we have to really make these people understand you committed a horrific crime. You took money from the taxpayers, and there has to be consequences.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hopefully to serve as a deterrent to people committing these crimes in the future. The Medicaid program is kind of involved into just a big slush fund, and that's not what it was designed to be. It's supposed to provide the health insurance to our vulnerable population, but unfortunately there's a lot of unscrupulous actors that have figured out a way to scam these programs.
There has been, and there needs to be accountability and transparency. And again, you should be able to see where all those dollars are going, what are they being utilized for, how are they empowering or helping someone, like you said. These are for health care. How are we actually helping those individuals who need that?
Yeah, it's gotten out of control in a big way. Every time you're on, of course, we always have to touch on the subject of human trafficking. I know that that's a huge area of focus for the Attorney General's office. What's the latest there, General?
Well, again, as we've talked about, and we've really seen our state rise to the level of being nationally recognized, again, to eradicate human trafficking. What we're doing in our state, we're leading the nation, and I think that's so significant, too. Seeing President Trump and his team come and look at what we're doing in Mississippi. And, again, that shows that we are bringing people together, our law enforcement, all of our partners together. And in the last few years, now we've been able to do over 60 multi-jurisdictional operations. We have trained over 600 law enforcement officers across our state. So at any given moment, if we need to do one of those operations, everybody in the partnership is ready to go. We've now arrested nearly 300 of those predators, those traffickers, and then the most important part, we've rescued nearly 400 in our state. So to help those individuals go from victims to survivors, and again, we've seen juveniles, we've seen children, and our role is to again have the strongest team to help them get there. We now have sexual assault nurses, we have all of our counselors, our advocates, our shelters, all working together. And most importantly, we added last year survivors. So survivors could sit there and talk to these now individuals that we've recovered and say, hey, these people are here to help you. We want to help you become a survivor too. And it's very emotional, but that's why we're so productive in what we're doing and leading the nation. And now we go out and show other states how to do it.
Is this another area, General, where we should consider enacting law that would increase the severity of the punishment?
You're exactly right. So last year, almost 2 years ago, the legislature passed some new strong laws. And what we've been able to do is to prosecute those traffickers. The first case that we had under the new law, we were able to put that individual in prison for 48 years day for day. And so that's exactly what we're doing now. We're going after every one of those predators, and we're asking for day longevity in their prison terms, and been very successful. So we appreciate that. We appreciate the opportunity to really prosecute them hard and make people understand, if you do this, we're coming after you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge problem, and it's just astonishing that it's happening in all of our communities, in many cases without our knowledge. And I know that your agency and others have invested a fair amount of time and resources in helping the public try to identify these situations so that they could perhaps report it to law enforcement so that they can get involved and take action. And much of the perpetration is actually committed by family members. It just blows me away every time we talk about that.
I know. The family members, the people that they loved and trusted, trafficking them for quick cash, drugs, and they don't mind doing it. And it's just so unfortunate. And, we see that we have to step in. Some of them don't even realize they're victims because they've been trafficked for so long.
Yeah,
and so they don't know any difference. But I will say, as we've been leading, another example, because of what we've done in the human trafficking side, working with the administration, we worked with DHS just last month, and we did Project Hope. Project Hope was an opportunity to be a pilot, to go for our country, other states to utilize, to find missing children in our foster care system. So we did that operation. We went out. It was very successful. We found 15 we had 15 children we were looking for, and we found 13 of them within the first 48 hours. So we always have to be strategic, be looking for ways to help and find assistance for these individuals, be it the trafficked victims, be it our children that are out there, because many times those are the very vulnerable children that get put into the traffic situation.
You're going to hang with us. We're going to come right back.
Okay.
We got Attorney General Lynn Fitch at Founder Square at the Neshoba County Fair. Coming right back.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Neshoba County Fair. We are located just off of the pavilion on Founders Square. We're visiting right now with the Attorney General of Mississippi, General Lynn Fitch. So, General, before we went to break, we got into a lot of different topics there, but on the break I said maybe we should cover the work you guys are doing with respect to protecting people from these digital predators that are an increasing problem.
You're exactly right. Unfortunately, we have digital predators. Not only are they going after all of us, but they're particularly leveraging on our children.
Yeah.
And in our state, we've been very strong again. We've been leading. A few years ago, our legislature passed the Walker-Montgomery Online Protection Act. And that was significant because we lost a young man, Walker Montgomery. We now have an act where we can prosecute on sextortion. That was key to that legislation. But the second part of that, because as you just said, the predators tend to get into, be it our children's computers, their phones, and they really pull on our kids and they show them horrific information, something our kids should never see. So the legislation that year certainly had the sextortion part, which stayed into effect. The second part said if you're going to be a good corporate citizen here in the state of Mississippi, you need to age verification. You need to have parental oversight and allow that to be in place. And then third, if you cause damages to these children, you need to be ready to mitigate the harm and the damages. So if you're a good corporate citizen, that makes completely good sense. However, the day it went into effect, they sued us. The sextortion part stayed in place, but as I tend to call them, the big net choice, the social media cartel, sued us because it's about money. It's always about money. It's not about our kids. They don't mind leveraging off of our children, so our children are at risk. So I've now sued nearly all of the social media platforms, and I can tell you, Gerard, I have seen the algorithms, the material they put out there. They put horrific things about, whether it's extortion, cutting, how to commit suicide, and they're exposing our children to all of that. So in Mississippi, we've stood very strong. We are in that lawsuit. We are winning. We just argued in front of the Fifth Circuit a few months ago. I suspect we're certainly going to win because we have great laws, and they're going to appeal it as soon as we win to the United States Supreme Court.
So speaking of the Supreme Court, you're aware there are a number of very high-profile cases that are awaiting a decision, and that is going to be handed down here. Could be any day, literally expecting maybe one concerning the RNC's lawsuit against the Secretary of State of Mississippi on the counting of ballots received after Election Day. We have a 5-day grace period if it's postmarked, as you know, on Election Day. But that could be something that we would have to respond to from a decision perspective. But the other one that you maybe think about was that they're taking up a case regarding states that have laws in place, such as Mississippi, that prohibit sex change treatment for minors. And they could come out and rule that those laws are unlawful, in fact. So has that been anything discussed in your circles with the other attorneys general, or what do you think about that?
Well, absolutely. We stood very strong in our state, and my colleagues as well, from the Republicans' very conservative standpoint. We certainly are not allowing that to happen here in our state and across the majority of our country. I would be surprised if there's any other decision that comes down like that.
Yeah, and the participation in sports by males and female sports, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's part of that case as well, and we prohibit that in Mississippi.
We do. We've done a great job. Our legislature has done an amazing job about passing a number of pieces of legislation, which helped us when we originally, the Biden administration said, we're going to mandate that every school allow boys to play in girls' sports and boys to be able to use the locker rooms and their bathrooms. And that was going to affect all the funding to come to all of our schools. So we filed the first lawsuit to protect our girls, their privacy, their security on Title IX. We went to the United States Supreme Court. They did not adhere to the Biden administration, and we won. And then now certainly President Trump, the executive order, and then we have that case, as you just said, sitting at the United States Supreme Court now. I feel very confident they're going to certainly come down and rule in our favor.
Would you believe, as long as you and I have been around this political world, that we'd be sucking up all the resources and the air out of the room on this? This is crazy.
No, it is crazy.
It's crazy. And states went in just totally different directions. You got states that just opened it wide and have gone nuts, and it's causing problems in those states, as you well know. Then you got states like us that took a more common sense approach and said, no, biological males shouldn't be competing against females in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so interesting for me to go to the legislature and say, I need you to do a definition of a biological woman and a biological man, because I'm going to have lawsuits that are forthcoming. They graciously did that, but it proved that we certainly needed to have that in statute so that we could be protective of our girls here in our state.
Man.
It's unbelievable.
It totally is. Have you been tracking this situation with the Department of Public Safety that appears sought to deploy these AI-powered cameras around the state? Are we starting to get into some areas where there may be some violation of our constitutional rights to protect privacy? I'm worried this is going to get sticky, thorny, complicated, and we may end up seeing some cases make their way through the court system. Thus far, I did research this a bit. The Supreme Court has sent all those back down to the lower courts. Any challenges to that? You know the laws here. We don't allow municipalities or counties to use any kind of automated recording equipment to issue citations, but it didn't extend over to DPS. So that's kind of what's going there. I'm just wondering if there may be some lawsuits forthcoming that your agency would have to get involved in.
Possibly. We've not been a part of any at this point, but to what you're saying, I think there's certainly a lot happening. We certainly know where our laws are, and they're very straightforward in our state. Again, we're very fortunate. We've got very solid laws. We've not seen that, but it's an interesting point that you bring up. I mean, different AI, the application, we've certainly seen that come about in the legal profession where some attorneys are using AI in their briefs.
Yeah.
So you've seen it where judicial situations where they've utilized that to write decisions. So it's an interesting dynamic that AI can be very helpful, but it can also be extremely unreliable.
Sure. Yeah. I kind of equate it to nuclear fission. There are positive, beneficial uses for that power to society, and there are malicious, harmful, nefarious uses of that. And we got to have reasonable guardrails, I think. That's my opinion, around that. But this ain't going away. We're going to have more new technology develop that it is going to probably sort of bump heads with our laws and our constitutional rights. That it is going to confound, I should say, our lawmakers and our legal systems.
Well, you're exactly right, and I think we have to just be prepared and be ready for that. And kind of going back to talk a little bit about how we're seeing the technology, how we're seeing that play out, and my role with my team is certainly to be protective of our children. And as we were talking about earlier, we just entered into a settlement agreement with Roblox.
Yeah.
And again, that's really on that verge. Again, the exposure to our children, technology, the opportunity to see that. And I will say, in that settlement, again, it was very much like our Walker Montgomery, protecting our kids, and they are agreeing to protect our children, which is where we should be. And we're going to expect that from every social media platform. No longer they're going to be able to leverage off of the kids in the state of Mississippi for dollars, and to put them in situations where they're learning horrific information that no child should be exposed to.
I think it's UK or Australia, one of those two countries, recently has passed law that bans social media use by anyone under 16. I mean, that's fairly radical considering how pervasive it is in our society. Do you think we may see something like that in our state or in the country?
I think it's certainly the exposure, and you are seeing a number of countries do just that. Again, we've got to be in protective mode. Again, information is so important. It's important when you share it, but it has to be the correct type of information. And we should never put our children at risk because the social media platform is going to make money off of our children like that.
Unfortunately, there are bad people that abuse it. I think the point is, it benefits us, but when you abuse it, then we got to draw the line.
We do.
Yeah, that's certainly what's happening. Anything else on the boards for your agency, for the Attorney General's office that you're working with the legislature on, you'd like to see done perhaps in the next legislative session? We got about a minute left.
Yeah, again, we always appreciate working with the legislature. We'll have some things we'll be bringing back forward to the legislature. A few more things, like with our human trafficking. If you're convicted of human trafficking, you ought to have to register as a sex offender.
Sure.
We should know if you've got them in your neighborhood, and so we're going to ask the legislature to pass that. We're going to be talking about crypto. That's another situation where we see people stealing people's monies, scams, and so forth. We've got some guardrails that went in this year, but again, I need to be able to seize that money and give it right back to that individual who was just scammed that $10,000 or whatever. And so if we can put that language in there so that we can immediately get that transfer back to that individual that lost the money. So we have some great things teed up, and again, always grateful for the legislature and the work we're able to do.
Yeah, and we shouldn't ignore the fact that a lot of our senior population gets scammed off that stuff as well.
They do, and that's always. So it's part of what we're trying to do is get out the communication and information and protect our seniors.
Indeed. Attorney General Lynn Fitch has been our guest here at the Neshoba County Fair. Appreciate it, General.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
We're coming right back with GOP Chairman Mike Hurst. Stay with us. We're at the Neshoba County Fair.
From the Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio, which has been relocated to Founder Square at the Neshoba County Fair. It's Mississippi's giant house party. It is certainly in full swing. Political speeches earlier this morning. Some interviews with some of those who actually spoke on the stage here at the pavilion. But right now, it's Mississippi's Republican Party Chairman Mike Hurst. Mr. Chairman, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Gerard. Great to be here, buddy.
Also, you're the General Counsel for the Republican National Committee. I should point that out as well. So you got some news to share with us, hot off the press, concerning the districting case, the redistricting case in DeSoto County. What's up there?
Yeah, that's right. So we tried this case about 3 months ago in Oxford, representing DeSoto County, Mississippi. The ACLU, NAACP, Harvard Election Law Clinic had brought a case on behalf of the plaintiffs saying that the supervisor districts in DeSoto County violated the Voting Rights Act. And we litigated that case. I'm convinced we would have won that case, but then the U.S. Supreme Court came down with this decision in Calais saying we, as a nation, we no longer allow districts to be drawn based upon race. And just about an hour ago, the court issued its decision, found that the plaintiffs did not prove their case, and that the DeSoto County's supervisor districts, and which encompassed other districts like election commissioners, judges, school board members, was constitutional and did not violate the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, it would hard to believe they'd rule any other way, right? Given the Calais.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and the plaintiffs brought their case, and they just did not meet the requirements that the Supreme Court says is now required under the Voting Rights Act and their decision in Calais.
Yeah.
And again, for ordinary Mississippians, this just is common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we as a nation, we never condoned the idea of allowing anything to be done in preference for a race, and to take what the plaintiffs, the ACLU, the NAACP wanted to do, and that was draw voting districts based upon race. I mean, I'm so glad the Supreme Court spoke on this issue, and I'm so glad the court in Oxford made the decision that it did.
Yeah, and of course, as you know, the Democrats, I'm sure that we'll get a press release any minute here from the Democrats that will be unhappy about this, but they maintain what really is a false narrative, if you will, that this is invading the Voting Rights Act. This is violating the Voting Rights Act. Well, you have the right to vote. Nobody's suppressing your right to vote. But the Voting Rights Act does not give you the right to vote for whom government basically says should be on the ballot.
Right.
Essentially, what's happening.
And it's even worse than that. Over the years, the courts had interpreted wrongly the Voting Rights Act to allow plaintiffs to draw districts based upon race.
Yeah.
And as I said, Justice Thomas talked about this in his dissent in Calais, but we don't allow the government to do anything else in our society that gives preference to race. Why in the world, in one of the most important rights that we have as citizens in this country, voting, to allow districts to be drawn based upon race? It's not fair to anybody.
Yeah.
And basically the Supreme Court in Calais got back to the original meaning, the original words, the original text of the Voting Rights Act and said, look, we want to allow everyone to have their ability to elect who they prefer, but we're not going to allow government to do that based upon race.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I think the courts obviously got this right. I'm not sure how we ever got off the rails some point ago when we started drawing gerrymandering districts to achieve some sort of outcome that was associated and tied to race.
Yep.
You can't deny that.
Yeah,
it's exactly what was happening.
And we saw that in the cases that the state of Mississippi lost relating to the legislative redistricts. The court said, pre-Calais, the court said, no, you have to allow them to draw it based upon race. Thank goodness that has been thrown out the window. We should not be dividing our citizens, our neighbors, the people, our friends based upon race. We should be drawing these districts based upon, traditional redistricting principles like compactness, like neighborhoods, things like that, and not looking at race.
Yeah, it in effect is discrimination.
Absolutely,
what it is.
Absolutely, and it continues to divide us as a country. And sadly, there are many groups out there that want that. They want to continue to divide us. Their whole business model,
they thrive on.
The whole business model is premised on dividing us and making money off that. And thank goodness that's coming to an end with regard to voting districts.
Totally true. All right, so. Democrat socialist Zoran Mondami is now the mayor of New York City, but it appears that he's got some stroke in the state of New York, where 3 congressional candidates he supported. One on the Democrat side in the primaries and will be headed to the general election. Mr. Chairman, I'm worried about this. First, it's America's largest city. Essentially under siege of Democrat socialists. Now it's 3 congressional districts to add to what is already in Congress. I'm worried this is spreading across our country.
Yeah, it's sad to see. But what I would ask your listeners here in Mississippi is, how in the world does the Mississippi Democratic Party continue to do what it does in linking itself with the National Democratic Party led by Mamdani, led by Bernie Sanders, led by AOC, whose belief system is, these folks make more than I do, and so we should just take their property.
Exactly right.
This neighborhood doesn't have a grocery store, so that we, the government, should just open and run a grocery store. They want to make sure everyone is the exact same, but when you do that, you suppress success, you suppress thriving, you suppress ambition, you suppress basically what this country was founded upon.
Innovation.
Yeah, innovation to try to grow this country, to grow our communities. And again, I can't understand how Mississippi Democrats can continue to be linked to the National Democratic Party, and they are. They're part of the platform. They, with these wins in New York, I think you will continue to see the National Democratic Party slide down to this socialism and this communism that they've been advocating for.
Man, I hope that's a loser in the midterms, because these folks, it used to be, as you know, Mr. Chairman, a discussion and a debate about economic policy, tax policy and the like but now it's crazy stuff, honestly, like let's defund police and let's empty the jails and let's open the borders up and let's defund ICE and terminate all deportations. That's the platform these people are not only running on, they're winning on.
That's right. And and as you spoke with General Fitch about, let's let boys compete in women's sports. Let's let boys go into women's bathrooms. I mean, these are literally crazy ideas that 50 years ago, we would have said, yeah, maybe that person needs to be evaluated.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
the cobwebs out of the brain.
I mean, you are on the fringe of society, and that fringe of society has now become the Democratic Party.
That is just crazy. Where's Hakeem Jeffries? Where are the establishment? Where's Chuck Schumer? And those are the two most prominent Democrats on Capitol Hill, and they're both from the state of New York. Where are they?
Right. Yeah. What I see Schumer and Jeffries is continuing to go down this national Democratic slide towards socialism. That's the only way they can go. They, as you said, they're from the same state. They espouse the same ideas. Right now, the Democratic Party is moving towards not just socialism, but I think more authoritative communist type of program. And again, today as we sit here, Gerard, the lines drawn between what is a Republican and what is a Democrat has never been clear.
I totally agree.
Has never been clear.
Good point.
And if you line up what we as Republicans, what we as conservatives, what our party platform shows, it has never been more closely aligned with the values and the principles of Mississippians.
Mr. Chairman, I don't like to be condemning of our education system, but certainly in our higher ed, I think we have to agree that these left-wing professors that dominate the higher ed community have been indoctrinating young people.
Absolutely,
and that's what's happening.
There's no doubt. Even in the trial that we had in DeSoto County, one of the expert witnesses for the plaintiffs was a law professor from Ole Miss, and one of the last things he said in his testimony was, "I believe that America, that Mississippi, that DeSoto County is racist. Period. Full stop." So you're exactly right. Unfortunately, we have people who are very opinionated in not only our institutions of higher learning, but even throughout our educational system. Look, we just ask you to teach the curriculum, teach math, teach science, teach history, but don't indoctrinate our kids, especially when we as taxpayers are paying for it.
Keep the ideologies out. Right. There's no place for that in the classroom.
And not just, he didn't say just racist. He said our country is systemically racist, and that is a taxpayer-funded professor
That's
at one of our
ridiculous.
state institutions.
Well, I'm going to recommend to the IHL that he not be granted tenure next time. So it totally is crazy. Before we go here, we've got about a minute left. Your thoughts about the midterms?
Well, I can't tell you how excited I am about the midterms, just because not only the Democrats continuing to slide towards socialism, what the president has done with the big, beautiful bill, the tax credits for the families, securing the border. Right now, I feel going into the midterm, we're stronger than we've ever been.
Well, good. And I agree with that. And I think the parties has really got to ratchet up their communication of those benefits. I think that's the key.
That's right.
People think clearly, see clearly, and they'll see fit to vote Republican.
If you balance the two issues, only one side comes out on top, and that's Republican.
I agree. It's been a pleasure visiting with Mississippi's GOP Chairman Mike Hurst. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Gerard. Appreciate you having me.
We're coming right back at the Neshoba County Fair for the final segment. Stay with us.
The One Body Shop. Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Final segment today from the Neshoba County Fair. Mississippi's a giant house party. We're at Founders Square, and we're going to be back again tomorrow, have another jam-packed lineup for you. We'll have Governor Tate Reeves on. We'll also be talking to Commissioner Sean Tindall. Looking forward to those conversations for sure. Another day of political speaking on tap at the fair. Tomorrow, I think let's see, I'm looking at the schedule here, gets started at 9 a.m. Of course, we're also going to have DeKeither Stamps on the program. He, of course, Public Service Commissioner for the Central District. Willie Simmons, the Transportation Commissioner for the Central District, will be on Middays. Supreme Court Justices Jennifer Branning and Kenny Griffiths will be joining Middays tomorrow as well. So looking forward, and we got Speaker of the House Jason White. Didn't mean to leave him out. Like I said, it's a packed schedule for tomorrow. Should be good, and I got a feeling that we may see some more Supreme Court decisions handed down between now and then. So that certainly will be something we'll be paying attention to. Let's see here what else we got going on. The President of the United States was scheduled to sign this sweeping housing bill today, and he called it off. He said, look, until I get the SAVE Act on my desk, that the election integrity measure that he has been pushing for passed the House, can't get it through the Senate. At least that's what Leader John Thune says. The votes aren't there. Remember, this is something that has to be passed with the 60 votes in the Senate. Does not qualify for passage under the reconciliation rules because it's really not budget related. That, according to the Senate parliamentarian who makes those calls as to what can be enacted through the reconciliation process in the Senate, really passed in the Senate, not enacted, but what can't. So she's already ruled, nope, that doesn't qualify. So the President says, I'm not signing this housing bill, I told you, until we get the SAVE Act passed. Something related to that we're keeping an eye on is that a federal judge just yesterday found that the SAVE database, now not to be confused with the SAVE Act, this is the database that contains information concerning citizenship status, that the SHIELD Act, which is state law enacted this past session, sponsored by Senator Jeremy England in the Mississippi State Senate, the SHIELD Act simply requires the Secretary of State of Mississippi to add some additional validation as part of the voter registration process to compare and submit a voter's personal information to the SAVE database to see if that person, in fact, is an American citizen before they are approved for voting, approved as a voter at the county level in the circuit clerk's office. So simple process, simply taking that electronic information, the personal details that you provide when you apply to vote, register to vote, simply compares that against data on file in the federal SAVE database. And if it comes back and says, yep, this person's a citizen, good to go, no problem. If it comes back and says, no, they're not, then you can contest it, and you've got to provide some additional proof. That's really all it requires, that, no, I really am a citizen, so they can clean that up. But also, this is something that I think is important, that the SHIELD Act requires our elections folks, our elections commissioners across the state who are responsible for administering the voter rolls, along with the circuit clerk there, they've got to actually compare all of the voters in their registration database. They've got to query, if you will, the SAVE database, the federal SAVE database, to ensure that everybody that's on the record in the voter rolls in each county, in fact, is an American citizen. They do that, again, by using the information in the local voter rolls. That information is submitted through an electronic process to the SAVE database, the federal SAVE database, and if it returns a response where it says, yep, this person is a citizen, no problem, good to go. If it flags any of them as being illegal or not being an American citizen, then a little bit more work's got to be done by the circuit clerk saying, how did they get into this database? At that point, they're inactivated, they're notified. They, of course, have the right to come in and contest that. And in contesting it, they prove, no, I really am a citizen. They clean that up. I don't expect we're going to find a lot of those, honestly, in the state of Mississippi. I really don't. In other states, yeah, I do. But other states don't have this law. This is a law specific to the state of Mississippi. The SHIELD Act just went into effect, I think, takes action. Goes into effect, I should say, July 1st. Goes into effect July 1st. And at that point, that's exactly the processing that will then be occurring in the county levels when folks register to vote, and then checking those rolls as well annually. Out of here today, back with you again tomorrow from Founders Square. Stay safe, and God bless everyone.
SuperTalk Mississippi media production.